Over the years, I've gotten so confident at growing houseplants, I figure, sure, I'll challenge 50 members of my own audience to grow the best plant over 9 months. Anyway, here's how to grow better plants than me. At my local nursery, I'm looking for something that fits the rules of the competition, something store-bought and in less than a 5-inch pot. Simple enough, but I've learned that there's so many plants that just won't change enough in 9 months for me to actually win this competition. Alocasia? Not ever. Rubber plants? They just grow way too slow. Jade pothos are just way too plain, so it was pretty much down to this spider plant or this Epipremnum pinnatum marble. Since I know that these pothos can pretty quickly end up looking like this, to secure the win, I had to break my first rule. I didn't start with a healthy plant. I still picked the best marble from the bunch, but I still had to get this one that had browning leaves, and some of the leaves looked a bit washed out from either overwatering or nutrient issues. Normally I would slowly increase the light of this plant and fully treat it for pests, but that takes weeks. I'm just doing the bare minimum of putting this plant in a Ziploc bag and treating it for pests for around 2 days. After that, I moved it under a 10-watt grow light for around 14 hours a day. I took readings with a light meter that measured at around 600 foot candles. And I'm keeping it on this table away from my other plants just in case it really does have pests. I also did something that I don't usually talk about. I added a small heating pad underneath this plant because I think it will give me a small edge in this 9-month competition. While generally higher temperatures equals healthier plants, this is not an open invitation to go and crank your thermostat. You live in a home, not in a sauna. This plant has been under grow lights for around 3 weeks, and now that I'm finally seeing some healthy new growth, it's finally time for its first repot. You always need a good plan for these competitions, and I have a vision. I'm getting this plant on a climbing post as soon as possible, and to help the plant stick to the post, I'm just wrapping it with saran wrap. The wrap will stick to itself, and if used correctly, it will create small humidity pockets for the aerial roots of the plant. And I need to win this competition with the largest leaves and the biggest plant. 1 month after that, the leaves are getting larger, they're staying fenestrated, and it's kind of sticking to the pole. Not great, but I think I'm onto something. Since I'm always trying to stay 10 steps ahead, I'm guessing that this plant will reach the top of its climbing pole in about 3 months. So I think if I time this perfectly, once that plant reaches the top of its climbing pole, I'll cut it, take the largest top cutting, stick that in a new pot, and have it climb up a new pole. And because of how much time I have left in this competition, I'm pretty confident that it should be able to climb up all the way to the top of a new pole just in time for the ending. Now this is a very high risk move, especially because I'm not using a moss pole at all in this competition. At the beginning of May, my plant is still doing well, climbing on the pole, and just as predicted, 3 months later, it's finally reached the top and ready to be cut. The biggest downside of refusing to use a moss pole is that when you cut the plant, it doesn't already have roots ready to go. And right now, that is the one biggest thing that's holding me back. Without a moss pole, I do need to start rerooting this plant from scratch. I need to make sure that I regrow these roots as fast as possible, so I'm going to go with fluval stratum because in my experience, this is what gets your plant to root the fastest. Now, fluval stratum is a brand name type of aquarium soil, but you can use any type of aquarium soil as long as it's the granules like this and not a powder format. I'm also taking some additional backup cuttings just in case, because the one thing I don't want to have happen is have my top cutting die on me and then be left with no plant with almost no time left in the competition. So with these additional backup cuttings, if my main plant does die, I'll have to rethink this and maybe do some kind of hanging basket. After about another month, the plant had grown enough roots for me to feel safe with repotting them back into soil. But the one thing I'm going to do differently is I'm going to wrap its climbing pole in burlap. The burlap gives the roots something soft to grow on and into, and most importantly, it lets me remove the plant later without having me to rip it apart like last time. I just get this burlap on a large roll from the hardware store and I cut it to size. Wrap it around the pole a couple times and then tie it off with string. Same soil, same setup, just a better execution. Now, all this time I really haven't been concerning myself with my competitors, so I figured let's look at the progress of some of the plants 6 months into this 9-month competition. Okay. Uh-oh. I'm sorta starting to regret my choice because here's mine. I've only got 3 months for this thing to make it all the way to the top of the burlap pole, but my biggest mistake was not taking into account how much of a huge setback cutting it and having to reestablish the roots would be. But after those 3 months, I made it. Halfway up the pole. Great. Anyway, I built this website, killthisplant.ca, where you can vote head-to-head on your favorite houseplant transformations over the last 9 months, and after 50,000 total votes, it actually gave me the top 10 favorites in this competition. Since I obviously did not make the top 10, I invited my 2 friends, Dana from Leafy Diva and Laura from Plants and Jars, to help talk about some of our favorites from the competition.
Who would buy that leaf? They would think that they would always have low variegation. So when you see the end result and you see all that variegation, that at least tells people that it's possible. I'm wondering what their care was on this to get it like this.
She's beautiful. This is crazy.
You can really see why they call it a Cebu blue. You can see like the blue sheen to it. They took really good care of this.
I also like the, it looks like a homemade moss pole, which is cool too. I think the Epipremnum had that too. But yeah, just beautiful, really large size leaves for a Varicosum. Pretty impressive for 9 months.
I've always heard that they were really difficult. Even the growers, they're like, these are very difficult. So this is pretty inspiring. Actually, I might have to try it out.
I've grown a lot of these guys before. I've never grown a specimen one like this, but it's cool to see what they look like when they get larger. And I really like the variegation on some of these leaves. It's really beautiful as well.
Most people don't realize that these are epiphytes because they look like they would be kind of like terrestrial plants. It's really good that this person started this plant off on a plank because most people don't, because they don't know that this plant is epiphytic. And I think that might be why it's growing like this, because these are also notoriously slow growers.
I'm partial to Epipremnums. I love Epipremnums. I just think this is just a great plant all around. I would be happy to have this in my house.
I don't know if I've seen variegation like this on a Mandula before. This is insane variegation. You literally have mostly cream leaves. This is beautiful.
The growth is great, and I'd like to see more of like the underside. Yeah, it's got some really great color too. Before we pick our most favorite plants, click the link in the description, join our Discord, and compete with us next time.
But number 3 is going to be the Mandula. Like I said, I don't think I've seen variegation like that on a Mandula, and that just has to be said. That there are points for that. That's impressive.
The first one is actually my number 1, and that is the Albo, because I respect them for picking such an ugly plant to start with and turning it into something so beautiful.
It's got to be the Tycon. The amount of light that this plant was able to receive really shows how it is the one most and only important thing for having a successful, thriving plant.
That Monstera, having the confidence to purchase a low variegation Monstera Albo and then being able to get this type of variegation is that's skill. That's not just luck, that's skill.
I think this plant, the transformation is absolutely insane. And they beat you, Lee, so congratulations, whoever grew this plant.
That's not easy to do.
I am also going with the Epipremnum Pinatum Albo. I don't think this person should compete with us again. I should be the one who wins. There's nothing else to say. I'm sorry. I tried my best.
Okay, this one's easy. Thai Constellation. That is I need some tips. Hands down. This is my number 1.
Obviously the Thai Constellation. It's insane. They don't need to be glazed anymore than they've already been glazed. You grew a great plant. It's amazing. Better than I could do. 10 out of 10.
I gotta give it to the Amedrium medium. The fact that this person has been able to convince me that like maybe an Amedrium is the plant to try, I gotta give this as my number 1 top pick.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see one over like a year and a half. See some really crazy stuff.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine.
If you want to watch our other competition videos, check out these 2 videos here, and if you honestly think that Cebu Blue Pothos was absolutely robbed, you can type in do-over in the comments. Anyway, see you next time.